Morning, everyone.
It was not indicative.
So I'm still not quite where I need to be, but I'm actually 10 times better than I was on Monday. Most of the mask is precaution. I don't do anything. I don't get anybody else sick, so I don't think that's all high likelihood, but I'm just being cautious. So we are going to conclude our presentations today. I didn't want to talk about Friday because there's been a few questions about that. We are having class on Friday. There will be a quiz on Friday. We're going to do our CPA prep and our rest of our last book club. I do expect that many people will be traveling. If you're going to be attending via Zoom, just let me know. That's all I really need to clarify. And then, that's pretty much it. Otherwise, if there's certain circumstances that are going to prohibit you from taking the quiz at the time that we take it as a class, please let me know. I can actually make accommodations for that. That's not to say I would like to make everybody has separate accommodations. That would be a little bit too much to deal with, but I'm happy to do it on case by case basis. All right. Well, with that, we're going to continue starting and going in alphabetical order. So it looks like Frank Coleman, staff accountant, is up first.
I shared my presentation.
Yeah, I think I've got it up there. If I don't, then we'll figure it out.
All right, so we had Frank Coleman, staff accountant.
There wasn't a whole lot to this case in terms of context that you need to know. The case is more or less just about whether or not you think that auditors or people in what they consider professional positions should be receiving overtime pay. But here is Frank. He, like a lot of our accountants, is married and works a lot, so his wife doesn't really like that. He's about to be promoted to audit senior. He's from Texas. And one key thing is he considers being a partner not necessarily an achievable job title, but being partner is a lifestyle, and he doesn't exactly know if he wants to do that based off his experiences.
So within the case we read itself, it talked about how a lot of the big four accounting firms had a lot of cases brought against them about overtime pay. So in 2008, former PwC employees filed a case, but the judge certified that case. So that basically meant that the plaintiffs could pursue their legal claims. It wasn't like they won or like one side won. And KPMG had a similar case against them. I think in the end, this case was actually thrown out. And also in 2008, other big four firms in Canada agreed to pay overtime to lower level employees. KPMG created this plan called the Overtime Redress Plan, which is basically they were going to start paying employees that were working overtime since January 1st of 2000. And then also in 2013 and 2015, there were two cases brought against EY, and both of those were thrown out eventually. And then in 2014, KPMG won an overtime lawsuit. And then in 2015, PwC settled two class action lawsuits. And then they had to pay $5 million to defendants and their attorneys. So it's kind of for the most part, big four firms have won somehow. Obviously, PwC didn't really win, but just an overview.
So because our case was kind of small, we also decided to do discussion kind of thing as Sydney's group last time, but I was going to give some definitions kind of on what they define a professional. So it's employees who carry out their job related responsibilities with a significant degree of autonomy. So they would qualify as exempt. And then I just wrote down that state and federal laws do not require employers to compensate employees for the overtime they work if one or more exemptions apply to those individuals. And so basically what qualifies you to be exempt or not exempt varies depending on your jurisdiction. But yeah.
Okay, so now on to some discussion questions. Maybe turn to a partner, talk for a little bit. The first one, do you believe that professionals, like Kristen just defined, should be compensated for the overtime they work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody want to answer out loud the number one?
Yeah, duh.
I think that maybe there should be a cap for how many hours you work. For example, if you're like a first year, you shouldn't have to work past maybe 50 hours. And then if you're a second year, maybe that is not 50 hours, but it might be like 55 or 60, and that goes up the higher level you are. I'm not saying those are the exact hours, so maybe there should be a cap at each level.
I think when we were kind of talking, we all somewhat agreed on no.
Yeah.
Because, like, this isn't say exactly accountants, but obviously accountants is more applicable to us, but it's like, Dylan had the example of his dad, like barely working 40 hours, but then working, go ahead. Take
Yeah,
it.
my dad's a project manager at an electrical firm. And so growing up, he worked like 50 hours or so a week or 60 hours a week whenever he would get busy. But I mean, he was in charge of himself. He worked independently. And so the work that he had to get done, he had to make sure that he was working the necessary amount of hours, whether that was getting to 40 or exceeding it. He was paid for the work that he was done, not necessarily the hours that he worked. And now it kind of sucked when he was like going up, but now where he's at the point where I was joking with them, I'm like, he'll like send us pictures of the Royals game or stuff, and he's like just not doing work. I'm like, don't you have a job? What are you doing? But he still gets compensated the same because he's doing the work just in the time that he has or the time that he thinks is necessary.
Yeah, we kind of talked about if you're on salary, it shouldn't be about how many hours really, it's about the work that you're doing. So some weeks might be more busy, but we're like, hopefully if it's less busy the next week, it's kind of compensated by balancing out, not by more money.
Yeah, is this a measurement problem? Is that we're not supposed, technically speaking, we should not be evaluated by the number of hours we work, by the quantity of work that we perform. And we just don't have a good metric for actually doing that.
Sure. Okay, so question 2 is, do you believe that auditors below the level of senior exercise independent discretion and judgment in relation to booking overtime hours? So like for me, I guess, anytime I've only been an intern obviously, but anytime that we like had to book overtime, you had to get approval from like 3 different people, I felt like. So obviously interns don't have discretion, but I don't know where the line switches to having discretion. So if you want to talk about that.
Dr. Barnes, when you worked in public accounting, and those first couple of years, was staying after like a choice or was it
Oh, no.
no?
It's actually funny. I was just talking to some recent alumni from Truman State, and they were saying that the culture has shifted somewhat. But even then, before COVID, the culture was the partner leaves, then a few minutes later, the manager leaves, and then the senior leaves, and the staff does not leave until the senior leaves. And that was always the culture when I was there. That's the culture there. Apparently, it's changed somewhat since the post-COVID era simply because of the work from home. So.
Makes sense. Discuss that question.
Also never.
Any input on number 2?
You said like if you're on an engagement team for a while, it's kind of just, it's not really the culture of you watch a senior leave and then you're able to leave. I feel like you're just constantly communicating on, do we need to get this done before the end of the day? Or like, can this be pushed off till tomorrow? So it's not really like, I'm just waiting for them to leave just so I can leave.
I feel like that's been the experiences I've talked to at my internships of how it goes. I do think working from home changes it completely because you can leave, go do your stuff, and then just hop back on and get your work done and kind of be a little more autonomous in how you do that. And these last two are pretty similar. And it's will overtime policy affect employees influence your job choices? And what are ways that accounting firms attempt to make up for the lack of overtime?
Pizza parties.
For four specifically, I feel like accounting firms give, like, obviously not during busy season, but like a lot of time off. A lot of PTO, and then you have the summer and winter shutdowns, and they have all pretty much every federal holiday off. I think that's a lot of time off. Because I always hear about accountants going on like, oh, I'm going to Europe to celebrate the end of busy season, or like Mitchell went to Europe. Um, I feel like it's a lot of time off where it kind of balances out for the hours that you're working.
It is a slippery slope. You get, on average, you get several weeks of, time off. But once you become more important in the firm, so to speak, then your ability to take time off becomes a lot less certain, I guess is the word I'm looking.
Mhm.
I think for the ways to attempt, I feel like even during busy season, they're like, here, take this food so you can stay later. Or like, you know,
The Theranos trick.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I was trying to compare. Oh, I don't know if you guys have experience of them like catering dinner more, but I know they like catered lunch a lot, like come into the office, work your hearts out, that kind of thing. But yeah.
KPMG is moving to unlimited PTO. Yeah. So sorry for those people.
That's what I said. It was basically unlimited PTO as long as you get approved and like the partner and your manager or whatever say it's okay. So.
We should bring another discussion. It's like you'd rather have unlimited or.
Nah.
Thing with unlimited is that if you have unlimited, you're less likely to use it because you don't have a limit that you need to use. So in the long run, with unlimited PTO, companies are actually having less people take time off because they're just like, oh, I could use the hours, but I don't need to. I'm not sick or anything. Whereas if you have like a set 2 weeks vacation or whatever, you're going to use it because it's not going to accumulate.
There will be people who abuse the system, but those people will not stay with the firm very long, so.
No. Yeah. I actually asked Deloitte in my interview. I was like, KPMG is moving to a limited PTO. Does Deloitte have any plans to do so? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay, I like that answer. I think that's all we had.
What is
I think we're in week 13 already.
I'm trying to remember the alphabetical order.
Yeah.
Hold on. The Tillman Rollins first, sorry.
There you go.
Oh,
Okay.
When you get out, it's like-
Which slides?
I think you were on. Were you on people? Yeah, you're on the people. And then, yeah.
So ours is over. It's over wrong.
So for our key parties, we have Tillman Rollin, who's the managing partner of the firm, and then Sophie White Eagle is the audit manager. These are the two like more important people in the case that are kind of had some disagreements. And then we have Jerry Martin, heavy audit senior, and Eugene Smith, a recruited staff accountant, who Rollman and White Eagle both have disagreements over whether they should hire or not. This is a small office of a Big Four accounting firm in a remote area.
So the way our case was kind of set up was like a story. It took place over several months and it kind of had 3 different days. So the first day was basically an office Christmas party. It was right before busy season. And the 3 higher up officials, which was Tillman, White Eagle, and the other guy, can't remember his name right now, they were talking about how they were worried about the upcoming busy season. Rollins talked about how one of their biggest clients was actually asking for them to do an acquisition audit. So they wanted to increase their workload. So basically another audit engagement. And since they were in such a remote area, they talked about how they couldn't like steal essentially other employees from their same Big Four firm. So they were kind of at a loss of what to do, which is where Eugene Smith comes into play. Rollins planned to have the other two people interview him that next Monday. So this kind of just set the scene for why, for like what the big ideas of this case was. And it was basically, it started with a huge understaffing issue.
So on the following Monday, Rollins had Sophia and Jerry come into his office and he asked them what they thought about Eugene Smith, the new hiree. So he had a pretty good record during his college years. He had a really good GPA. He worked really hard. He worked part-time during his college years, and during the summer he worked full-time in order so that he could pay for most of his college without needing very many scholarships or loans. However, that being said, neither of them were a very big fan of him. And they didn't really have very strong reasons. The main reason was, one, he had grown up on a farm, and also he didn't dress the nicest. They kind of made fun of his Walmart suit at his interview. But other than that, like, he really didn't have any like real reasons to not hire. But that being said, they didn't think he would last given those kind of factors that going into it. And so they thought that, okay, Tillman's probably just trying to hire him for a busy season, and then afterwards, probably going to fire him, which wouldn't be very good for him. Tillman argued like, well, it's better if he has a job at a higher accounting firm for his resume. And then they argued, well, if he's only here for a couple months, it'd be harder to explain away. And basically they kind of went back and forth. And then at the end of that session, Tillman was kind of like, well, actually, I already hired him anyway. And I just kind of wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on that.
So the busy season happens. They all survive, and the headquarters of one of their big clients moves. So now they go from being understaffed to hiring this new guy, and then now they're overstaffed. So that's the thing that the manager and the senior were a little like worried about, and the partner decides to fire him after basically being overstaffed because of this client leaving. There wasn't really anything that the new audit associate did, but they basically just fired him, and Sophia I think she was the manager, didn't agree with the decision of the partner, so she resigned a month later. And then Jerry, who was the guy below Sophia, got promoted.
So these are some of the kind of the case questions. So we're just going to kind of talk about them. So honestly, I think the first one, I'm going to skip the first one and just talk about how if Tillman Rollins acted with integrity. I think it's pretty simple to say no. He didn't really give a real reason for firing Eugene Smith. He was a good worker. Apparently he did everything. That's why Sophie and Jerry actually came to really like this guy, even after having the reservations after they interviewed him. So that's why they weren't happy with the decision. He only really fired him to increase their firm's utilization rate. So you kind of have to think, is it okay to just fire someone just so you can work on your performance metrics, or should you actually have a real reason to let someone go? And Tillman Rollins kind of tried to like make it seem better by like offering Eugene like really good severance package and like stuff like that. But it's like, does that really make up for the fact that they hired him and then fired him for no real reason except that they were simply overstaffed? So I guess you have to think, should Tillman Rollins like have, I don't know, try to incorporate other ways to work on their overstaffing issue, or was firing Eugene Smith really the best move? Which kind of leads us to like what traits like Tillman Rollins should have honestly had. And I think a big trait of being an OMP is integrity, which he kind of, you could argue he did not show here. Communication, leadership. I feel like these are all just big things any higher up official in a company should be. And yeah, I think, so would you like to work at this office with Tillman Rollins? We were just going to kind of go through and talk about if we would. I'm going to say no, because it seems like it was a really stressful environment. Especially it was also in a remote area. I don't know, I guess.
Virtual.
Yeah. I know, I mean, I like Kirksville, but, yeah, so that's my opinion, but.
Yeah.
Definitely say I wouldn't want to work with someone like Tillman Robbins. I mean, job security is like really high on the importance for me. So like having the threat of someone who's willing to just hire you and then fire you within a couple of months, even after being warned by his fellow colleagues that he was probably going to do that just because he was only hiring really just for the busy season. And I would also agree that.
Yeah, I pretty much have the same reasons as Kyle. I feel like if I'm working at that firm, that was to say that I'm not gonna be fired next if we lose another client or something, or so. Yeah, pretty much the same things what Kyle said.
Is there anyone who would want to work there? Yeah, I feel like that's the general consensus. Which kind of leads us to the last one, which is measures to enhance new hire success. I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory. I know like all my internships had this, but like mentorship programs, feedback reviews, like continuing like meetings to like work on to see like what you're doing well and what you could improve on. So I mean, in this case, I don't think any measures the employees could have done would have enhanced Eugene's ability to stay at the firm, since Tillman Rollins literally only fired him because he was just kind of there. He was the easiest one to fire. But in general, having that like mentorship program and stuff like that. And I'm sure where you guys have worked have had similar things.
Yeah.
Having some sort of feedback, especially if, sometimes those difficult conversations can be really difficult, they can feel like really awkward, like saying, but like, telling them what they need to improve on, telling them, if they're not doing enough or whatever, those can greatly help. Not only them, but.
Yeah, that was our case.
All right, we have Charles Tomlinson. Here are the key parties. This is Charles Tomlinson, his main guy. He's the audit manager. Craig Allen's the audit manager that was just promoted to partner over Charles. Walter Linton is the partner, and then it doesn't name the actual client, but just the CEO that Charles was asked to work on.
So a little summary, Charles Tomlinson is very skilled micromanaging auditor at the company. He's worked there for a couple of years now, and he's on track to getting a promotion. He's often assigned complex accounting issues, but feels overlooked and undervalued. A lot of the people he's working with often get a lot of what he would call easy jobs, and he's consistently getting some of the more tedious tasks. The client CEO specifically requested that Tomlinson, for a critical audit concerning the acquisition of Target, had overstated inventory, which made up 45%. So 10-hour work days. Again, he's just constantly giving work handed to him. He's kind of getting fed up at this point. He's like, I'm consistently getting all the audit work. A lot of the other people he's working with is kind of not getting as much work as he is. His peer, Craig Allen, was then promoted to partner due to client connections and networking, not technical skill. So again, this Craig Allen guy was kind of on the same track as Charles was. Charles gets passed up, even though feels like he's been doing more work than Craig. And Craig, it was mentioned that he had connections to the country club in the area. So he's led to believe that this is why he got the promotion and not Charles. Tomlinson has now been passed over. Like I mentioned, this is the second time he's being passed over. So now he's kind of getting defeated, feeling like if I stay around, am I even going to get promoted in the future? And the one person that was vouching for him the most, or was a past partner, ended up leaving and going to work for a client. So now he's at the point to where
the one person I thought had my back, maybe could vouch for me, is no longer here. I've already been passed up twice. Is there any reason for me to stay? And the firm, he talks to the firm and they tell him like, no, like stick with it, like you'll get your promotion eventually, but he's kind of feels like he won't. So he views his career as a disappointment and struggles to whether to continue to doing his tedious work without the valid recognition.
Okay, so this is questions for the class. Show of hands if any of you guys are either already signed your offer letter or plan to for a private company versus public firm. Are you guys going public? Pretty much, everybody? Okay, how many see you guys staying until the partner level? No? Nobody? I think all three of us said no. And then what are some different approaches to take when looking for career paths? I know for me, I'm kind of leaving it up to my experience. Obviously, I want to earn my CPA and then get to the manager level and then maybe go out and do private stuff. But does anyone else want to share what they might think that they want to do? Yeah, I mean, it's good stance there.
I always wanted to teach.
Yeah, good. And then, like we said, Charles is kind of the more technician, and then Craig guy is more of a rainmaker. For a firm, which do you guys think is more valuable? Someone who brings in clients or someone who can answer more difficult audit questions?
You bring in more clients.
More clients?
I think they're both valuable in different ways. Like if you're bringing in so many clients, but you don't have the technical skills to handle that, they're just gonna find out they're gonna be mad, they're gonna leave, they're gonna, bad mouth. But, if you just have technicians, you don't have anybody with social skills to bring in clients, then you don't have any work. So you do need both for different reasons.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of we said. It's like if you only have rainmakers, you're not doing the work for the clients. But if you only have technicians, you're gonna run out of work to do.
I think like what Dylan said, a mediocre like technician, but you have like really good social skills is better than like I guess mediocre social skill and a really good technician.
When I was reading this, I thought the guy was probably doing such a good job at his role. They probably didn't want, like a company, probably didn't want to make him partner. Because you just have a completely different role and you're doing completely different things for the firm as partner that this guy probably was not, his skill set was probably not suited to, and he was doing fantastic at the job he had now, so.
And they also talked about Charles. He said that he always wanted to be a partner, and then he was like disappointed that he got, failed to get the promotion. But he also thought about, I mean, do I want the extra liability of becoming a partner, and do I want my job to change that much? So he was like disappointed, but he was like, do I just stay as a senior forever and kind of do my work? But
So to keep going, it's like, do you believe Charles Twilson was qualified to be a partner position at his firm? No, Dr. Owen?
I think the partnership is by definition somebody who can actually bring business to the firm.
yeah, it's a really key asset.
And then if Twilson's firm treated him fairly, why or why not?
I think they could have provided more options with him.
Yeah.
But I think that they were very fair. They probably should have been a little more transparent, maybe not.
Yeah. I was thinking that maybe they could have communicated to the board why he wasn't getting that promotion rather than just telling him like, oh, you didn't get it. It's kind of know where he's at. And then also, even though he's not getting promoted to partner, his salary probably isn't necessarily set. Like he probably could have gotten a raise or a little bump somewhere else.
I forgot what it's called. It's like not up or out or something, but you can stay at your level. You don't have to just keep getting promoted. And then once you get to a certain, and some time goes by and then you're out. You can stay at senior.
So I was just thinking about that because that's something I posed to my mentor when I was at KPMG, and they basically said up or out.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of an unwritten rule, but it's one of those things that for professionals that they're assuming that you're always going to keep moving up.
Yeah. I didn't know in real practice how applicable that was to senior managers to partners. I know it is for associates. Like if they can't get to senior associate, if they can't get to manager, then it's, you're either going to get let go or keep promoted. So
since we're on the topic, for our question 4 was like, what are some advantages and disadvantages of up or out promotion?
Like, does it kind of push individuals to always seek promotion and then just get new employees every year that just kind of force the old ones out? Like, what are the advantages of having that mechanism or not having it?
I think it's probably better not having it. If you have senior managers who have been there, loyal to the firm, know exactly how everything operates, and maybe some of them have more experience than partners. I think it just helps the overall culture, having someone that knows the ins and outs and is loyal to your firm, and rather than just getting rid of them just because they don't want to be promoted.
What do you do to the people coming up though?
Exactly, they don't get promoted as fast. They might leave. That's why I don't know. I think it's kind of like what you're saying is right. And there's also the other side of it that people who don't or stay on the same client for a long time, they might want to, take a new job with the client instead of staying. So I don't know. What's your opinion on the up and out?
I have a very divisive opinion about this because I personally would have probably stayed at KPMG much longer if they hadn't promoted me.
Do they give raises you can't become partner, but do they continue to raise your salary?
I mean, it's marginal raises, but you do get them. Basically, once you reach a certain level and you plateau at that level, you stay at that level. It's kind of the same thing for accounting professors. I'm basically at the same pay that I started at 10 years ago. Just marginal cost of living increase. So the problem with this is that you lose out on a lot of capability. Like I was very, very good at running data analytics and managing engagements that had that feature. And they said, we want you to take your hands off of it and manage other people doing the data analytics, which I was not as good at. So I think that you lose out on a lot of capabilities, a lot of skill sets when you do an up or out promotion policy.
Yeah. And even, I mean, it also comes down to the people themselves. Like over my internship, I had 3 different engagements, 3 different managers. Some of them were really good at mentoring and teaching me how to do everything. And one of them kind of just said, like, here's some work, get it done. See you on Friday. So it was
Sound like I do.
yeah. So and I really enjoyed the other 2. So yeah.
So question 3, so identify some criteria you believe large international accounting firms should use when evaluating individuals for promotions to partners.
A lot of it's, can they go out and get new clients?
I think like, yeah, like the
Or
story.
they have the technical knowledge to back it up.
Yeah, social skills.
I think that's kind of, but yeah, that's it.
KPMG has their own, like they created a role, I don't know how long ago, for individuals who were senior managers that aren't going to become partners. And so now they call them directors.
Oh, yeah.
They're under the role of partner, but then they're just going to stay there.
I've been wondering if you actually have to have audit experience to be a director, or if you really just getting clients.
I don't think they get clients. I think they just manage.
Just manage it.
Yeah. And they just manage under a different role.
I think.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Speaking of inappropriate partners.
That sounded,
So a little background, Madison Wells has been with her firm for 5 years, and was recently promoted to audit manager. And instead of staying with her normal account, so she believed she was reassigned to a new oil and gas company. Like pre-oil and gas, I'm just gonna keep saying it like that, or is it Liprex?
Libri.
Liprex, okay, sorry. Liprex was made to switch auditors to secure a loan. They were not very happy about the new firm's adherence to rules and willingness to bend to pressure. They kind of bullied their former auditors into just writing down what they wanted them to. And Wells, the supervising senior auditor on the engagement, left in the middle of the busy season. And he was encouraged to do both of their jobs.
So the senior auditor who left in January wasn't able to like review the board of director minutes from February's meeting. And in February, the board discusses new debt covenant thresholds. And so as the audit was kind of like wrapping up, Madison decided to review all of that paperwork, and she discovered that the senior had done the math for the debt covenant work papers in compliance with the old debt covenant thresholds. And she realized that she and her partner, Daniel Alanis, had both signed off on this, and that the financial statements were then released. After she discovered that they were not done in accordance with the new debt covenants, and so the company was no longer in compliant with their new.
So we don't actually know how this problem got resolved because the guy in charge, Alanis, he basically just cut Madison out of it eventually. He was really mad when he found out, and then he came in and they did a bunch of work together, and then she heard like nothing about what happened. He just said he took care of it. Completely cut out. We don't know how he fixed the situation.
I don't think he did.
Was there more on my side? Circumstances that affect the audit report. Generally, an auditor finds out something that would have affected a previously issued audit report. They have the duty to notify those who rely on the report that they cannot rely on this report and they must update it.
So can auditors make honest mistakes? Because Alanis basically says Madison says it was just an honest mistake that happened, and he says we can't afford to make bleeping honest mistakes or something along those lines. But we believe that auditors are humans, and humans make mistakes, and there are systems in place to fix those mistakes. And as long as you follow the procedures and hopefully act professional enough to fix them, then it should be okay.
As for whether the issue was a mistake, negligence, or recklessness, the senior wasn't in the wrong because he left the firm before the board of directors had their February meeting. So he did everything he was supposed to with the information he had at the time. He was totally in the clear on this. Madison did technically make a mistake, but it was super easy to make. You do the work papers, you file it away, you forget about it till the review period. And she did find it during the review period, but if it's February and they have a board of directors meeting, it might not click to you that, oh, we need to review these minutes to see if there's anything in there because the board of director minutes had already been signed off on and filed away. So yes, she made a mistake, but it's really easy to see how she could have made that mistake.
Auditing standards and review process. The purpose of the overall review process is to make sure that the forms are filled out correctly and that the work is performed correctly. The amount of detail the reviewers need to go into ideally wouldn't vary, but realistically more detail needs to be given to the work papers performed by newer staff. More experienced staff can be trusted to handle more complex tasks correctly, and review of more experienced staff work focuses more on administrative details than work details.
So if you didn't get around to reading the case, there's like 3 pages of Alanis basically cussing her out. And I thought it was really interesting, like going over the discussion questions, that it focuses a lot on Madison's reaction to it, which I honestly didn't think that it was that bad, because if I was in that situation, I really don't know what I would do. We think that she didn't really need to take the heat for all of that, but there weren't many great ways when somebody is that mad to de-escalate the situation. From a professional standpoint, I don't feel like you should look at an issue as you versus the people you're working with versus the problem. I think it's always better to look at the team versus the problem. But in this case, I really can't say what I would do if I was in that scenario and getting screamed at for a very, very, very long time and then getting completely removed from the case. And like we said, it is, her fault for not catching it, but it's also hard when you've had, you're looking at it and it looks like everything's approved. So, I mean, I guess it's good that she went back and caught it, but at the same time, it's always one of those things that it's more frustrating sometimes when you do catch those at the same time. So
you want to say yours?
Sure. I mean, come on, you guys know me. Nothing is serious, everything is temporary. So Daniel getting this mad, that's just funny to me. You know, I probably would have poked the bear to get him more mad just because that's how I am. You know, eventually somebody can only get so mad before they just wrap back around to being calm. So I probably would have done that. I would not have helped. I can say that for certain. Um,
Um, Putting myself in Alanis' shoes, I can't say that I wouldn't have cussed. There would have been a lot of cussing. But there's a difference between just cussing and cussing at someone, and that's where the line is drawn. Like, oh, this bleeping problem, oh, this bleeping sucks, but not like, oh, you're so bleeping stupid, like, how do you miss this? Like, that's wrong. It's uncalled, I cannot pronounce anything today. It's uncalled for, and everyone makes mistakes, especially when overworked, and she lost her senior, like, during the engagement. The situation sucks, but you don't have to belittle someone to get all that frustration out. And then icing her out of the rest of the engagement was, like, wrong.
I think putting yourself like actually in her shoes and just like really relishing in the fact that she got moved to a client that she didn't have a lot of experience in at all, and then having that guy leave right in the middle of busy season, like, I don't know. Part of me would hope that if I was in that situation, I'd probably try to stick up for myself a little bit more, but I don't know. Like we said, it's hard to de-escalate that situation, but like Matt said, he does, like, throughout the yelling, he does like get his composure again and then seals. So
so now for some class discussion. So at the end of the case, she's monitoring the company's reports and they're not filing anything with the SEC that would indicate they are in violation of their debt covenants, which I believe is what the proper course of action would have been, would be to notify them, they file an 8K, and then everything goes from there. So what alternatives would you all have taken? If you were in her situation, you know there's an issue with the company, you get cut out, you keep monitoring for updated company filings, you don't see them. What are you guys gonna do?
You hang out on the beach to eat.
Probably go golf.
Yeah, all right, well. Great discussion, guys. I believe that's it from us.
The irony is I actually had a client like that when I was at KPMG. I was mapping a data analytics project and they didn't give me a proper map of the payroll system, so I had everything wrong. And when we issued our report, the partner or the chief audit executive, that's what his name was. Chief audit executive called us out on it, said it was a big piece of crap report, and then tried to rip it in half, but he was an older man and he wasn't strong enough to actually rip the report in half. So he just slammed it on the table instead. But in retrospect, it's extremely funny. But yeah, I was sitting there in stunned silence while the managers were blubbering in tears. It was kind of an awkward situation. All right, well, that kind of wraps up professional issues. All right, class again on Friday. Again, please let me know if you're not going to be here present in person, but we'll work things out. Otherwise, see you then. Have a good day. Monday is break.